Hi, my name is Jerry Hockstad. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed at the age of 73 with type 1 diabetes. This came as a great shock to both my wife Mary and me because we didn't put together all of the signs, the weakness, the fatigue, the excessive thirst, the weight loss, the mental confusion and the slurring of words. We never put it all together, and we had planned earlier a trip to Ireland in August of that year. And so we drove to Boston to be with my sister, and we flew to Dublin. We stopped on the bus tour at one point for a photo op, and I had trouble getting back on the bus. I couldn't do it by myself. And so that evening, and I remember the date, it was our 51st wedding anniversary, we went to a doctor. Unfortunately, he did not have any testing equipment available, so I had to wait and see him the following morning, which I did. 2 simple tests confirmed that I had diabetes. He didn't know whether it was type 1 or type 2, but he started me on metformin. Well, I went back to see him several times during the day, and he doubled the dosage, and then he increased the frequency with which I was taking the metformin, and none of it worked. And so on Tuesday, the following day, he said, "I'm not smart enough to handle this. You have to go into the hospital." This was in Killarney, Ireland, so we then made the trip to Tralee to Bon Secours Hospital, and I was admitted on Tuesday night. After several more tests, Dr. James O'Regan walked into the room on Wednesday and said to me, "You have type 1 diabetes. This is not your fault. You did not do anything to cause this. This isn't your fault." I think it's very important to remember that, especially for the friends and family of the diabetics, because there's so much miscommunication, misunderstanding about type 1 diabetes, and often there's a stigma attached to it as though it's the fault of the individual who has it. And I might add at this point, there is no evidence of diabetes in my family on either my mother's or my father's side. And so I think it's very important that we communicate to everyone that type 1 diabetes is not the fault of the patient.
How were you taught to manage your diabetes, and what tools did you use?
Well, actually, when I was in Tralee, they started me on Lantus, at which point I started feeling a whole lot better. But I was not taught to manage my diabetes until we got back to the United States. We finally convinced Dr. O'Regan to release me from the hospital so that we could fly back on Saturday. And when we got back to the United States, they drove me to Leahy Clinic in Burlington, Mass., where I spent the night in the emergency room undergoing more examination. And I should add that when I went to the emergency room, my blood sugar was over 450 at that point. And so they did several more tests.